I will show you where I have made my home whilst preparing to bring justice. Then I will break you.
I get asked all the time. I think one of the most frequent questions throughout all of the Gotham videos or live streams or video comment sections or whatever is, where is Bane and when is he coming to Gotham, or why hasn't the show done him already? And I've held off making this video for a long time because in my own understanding it's been a no-brainer. But if there's such a demand from fans, then could he really work in Gotham? So in this video, let's take a look at the hints of Bane in Gotham, and let's talk about the character that is actually Bane in the comics, movies and video games, and ultimately why I don't think Bane would work in Gotham, despite how the show does things differently, like introducing the villains before Batman, thus forging our Batman in the Gotham TV show.
Ah, yes! I was wondering what would break first. Your spirit? Oh, your buddy!
Now let's go back to season 1 episode 5, which I believe was called Viper, and the synopsis was the following. A new fatal drug that endows superhuman strength sweeps through Gotham. While Jim and Harvey investigate, Oswald tells Maroni, God, remember Maroni guys? This is taking me back, that used to work for Fish, and the mob boss brings Jim in to confirm Oswald's story or die. Meanwhile, Bruce discovers that Wayne Enterprises may have been involved with the manufacture of the drug and sets out to learn the truth. Now I actually really remember this episode in season 1, and I have to admit it was one of my favorites of season 1. I haven't watched it in a long time, but just remembering back to it, I think the reference to Viper and Venom was such a cool thing to do early on, and it just sowed the seeds of many, you know, other Batman things from, like the show has done in an Easter eggy way that kind of got us excited for the future. And that happened with Jerome Valeska as well. And we all thought, what's going on there? Just things like this. It all started with Viper in the show, and that's what gave me that thrill.
Primitive part of his brain, the limbic system. And now I add my super soldier serum, codenamed Venom, to which I add my very own recipe of steroids and toxins. Plug him in. Time to scream.
Now, if you guys remember, Viper was mentioned to be the prototype to Venom, and Viper drained calcium from the bones so that everyone who used it eventually got absolutely destroyed. And if I remember correctly, didn't that guy get crushed by like an ATM machine or something like that? That was pretty hilarious. And I just remember thanking Gotham for being so ambitious with their first season with Viper. Now in the show, Gordon mentions Viper's nasty side effects, and Steiner, the character who was quite involved with the Viper drug, responded that it was just the first test strain, and Welsin, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, eventually succeeded in creating a non-lethal version called Venom, and pretty much from there on out we haven't really heard anything about Venom, and it was more just a cool, as I've mentioned already, little Easter egg to Bane, or like just the future of, if you know a little bit about Batman and stuff like that and you're watching the Gotham TV show, this would usually score with you.
Hey, you gotta pay for that.
Do not vex me, mortal.
Yeah? Suit yourself, Zeus.
Now sure, I'm gonna have people asking, what about this guy or that guy at the end of season 2 of Gotham? The show has definitely had Bane homages, teasing people who have worn similar things to the character that we know, but these guys aren't Bane himself. Look at these as Bane Easter eggs. Shows love including things like this. It's very fun to do, and sure, it causes speculation, maybe even as far as hype among fans. I mean, think about the amount of speculation videos that get created today. It generates interest in the show. People thought that a guy who wore a vest similar to, you know, Bane in the Fight Club in season 4 could be Gotham's unique way of doing it differently, but similar in one way to the comics, as Bane has engaged in fight clubs in the prison that he was in. I mean, God, people even thought that Captain Barnes could be Bane. I mean, I know Gotham does things differently, but imagine if that happened. I mean, holy sh**.
Guilty! 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 Guilty!
Now, Bane in the comics is a master tactician for sure. There have been a few iterations of the man who broke the bat. I mean, I feel like The Dark Knight Rises actually did a good version of this Bane. I mean, apart from, you know, where we found out he was just more or less a thug for Talia al Ghul, but definitely they fulfilled the tactful side of him and stuff like that. Also, kind of minus the Venom, but, you know, that was kind of more of a realistic universe.
No choice, Mr. Wayne.
But the Bane we kind of see in the games, like, you know, the Arkham video games and stuff like that, is basically a dumbed down brute who gets roided up with Venom. And as cool as that still is, that isn't necessarily true to the man who fought through the prison, who just engaged completely in for survival and stuff like that. I mean, if you know a little bit about Bane, or you've read some of his origin, you know exactly what I'm on about. And then look at him in the games. He's just this absolute thug, and there's not that kind of deeper connection to how hard he had to fight to get out of where he was. So let's touch a little bit on the cliff notes of Bane in the comics. I mean, as some of us know, Bane was serving out the sentence of his father with his mother, and his mother couldn't really handle the life in the prison, and to be honest, I don't think anyone really could. That is, you know, Jesus Christ. And so he was left to fend for himself in the prison. Bane had to learn to conquer fear, like, by himself. He was out there in that prison fending for himself amongst this horrible bunch of people, like murderers, you name it.
Oh, you think darkness is your ally? You merely adopted the dark. I was born in it, molded by it. I didn't see the light until I was already a man. By then it was nothing to me but bright.
If I remember correctly, he even saw a vision of himself, his future self even, which helped him overcome his fears and worry of living in that place. And if I remember correctly, he even saw like a vision of a bat during that, which makes it very, very interesting and kind of parallels Bruce's, you know, calling as well. So throughout the years, Bane had to forge himself to become stronger. He kept himself alive in that prison, and it evolved him into this insanely strong-willed person, as you can imagine. And as I mentioned, kind of cliff notes, a man named Bird told Bane about the city of Gotham and the bat that ruled over the city, you know, at night. And this is where Bane was basically intrigued and fascinated by the Batman. After this, he wanted to find the Batman, I mean, I guess take over Gotham and ultimately become the strongest, because, you know, Batman rules over Gotham essentially as the Dark Knight during night. I mean, not so much during the day. And ultimately in Gotham, the criminals fear Batman, and everyone fears Batman more or less. So Bane wanted to defeat this person. Eventually, Bane wants to get out of prison. He takes part in these experiments through Venom, which we all know creates super soldiers, more or less. But whereas everyone died in taking those injections, well, Bane survived.
Prepare to meet your master.
Now, with all that said, how could this work in Gotham? People are clearly saying, where's Bane? Why isn't Bane in the show? As previously mentioned, Gotham does things differently, and in some cases bad, and in some cases really, really well. I mean, think about it. We have the Penguin, Riddler, Joker-esque Velasquez, who are all here before the Batman, and who are huge reasons as to why this show has got to 5 seasons. This proves that there can be villains before Batman, and that their natural storylines can work in Gotham City with Bruce still fairly young. But can Bane, for lack of a better word, be as easy as it was to introduce the Riddler and Penguin, who kinda naturally fit in with a young Gotham? Yes and no.
Okay. You really are nuts.
We were teased in season 1 with this, you know, I guess you would say the super soldier program with Viper, the prototype to Venom, and as I said, we even got the mention that it, you know, Venom would be successful. So you could argue that yes, that program and storyline from the comics is being fulfilled in an attempt to create super soldiers, and that it was a prototype of Venom. But in my opinion, it just wouldn't work. No matter what way or path you could create for Bane in Gotham, it would just underwhelm the character's origin. And it would be like trying to force fit a puzzle piece into a puzzle, and it just wouldn't quite look right. Or you know, it just wouldn't work. You wouldn't be able to fit it in, even if the shade or the colorings of your puzzle were similar. It just no. I can imagine people saying, okay, Gotham could maybe pull this off. Let's just say there's a prison not so far away, and they moved the experiments there after, you know, that facility in season 1 episode 5 just miraculously vanished, and then they went on to experiment with an even younger version of Bane, so as to make it work for the show with more or less the same origin of him being a child and still forging himself in previous years in that prison, right? And then Bane could come to Gotham and blah blah blah. But no, this is fast tracking his story and his origin in a way that just can't be changed. Bane's origin is not as malleable as other villains have been in order to implement into the show. You would be bringing a younger man into the show who hasn't fully molded himself through the survival of the fittest in prison, educated himself through the sheer determination and will to be the best and strongest. And why would he want to go to Gotham? There is no Batman yet. He wouldn't have heard of the city that is ruled by the Bat at night. For him to want to oppose and beat, it would just be truly pointless and forced. Even though we know that Venom exists in the Gotham universe, as I just said, it would be pointless.
What? Edward? But that's your name. Edward. 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 Edward.
Enough!
Now, even though Gotham does an excellent job in bringing its villains into the show before Batman, thus making the villains forge the Batman rather than the other way around, which, by the way, makes even more sense to me in the way that Gotham has created the Batman, which, you know, we'll finally be seeing in this upcoming season. Unfortunately, as cool as Bane is, he just wouldn't work in the show with all what I've just said. I know I'm not a writer, so I know you could argue that I just haven't thought of a way for him to be written into the show that is workable in a unique way, but I stand by what I said. This character's origin is so specific that it isn't malleable or adaptable to be put into the Gotham TV show, and as it was for other villains that we have seen throughout the past 4 years. And it would quite frankly ruin the character if he was implemented into the show. It just wouldn't make sense.
You fight like a younger man. There's nothing held back. It's admirable, but mistaken.
But anyway, everybody, on top of all of this, we have enough going on next season anyway. We have villains like the ventriloquist in Scarface coming, Mother and Orphan, Lady Shiva, and just more, which my brain is just farted about right now. And we have Bruce becoming Batman. We have potentially only 10 episodes coming from Cameron Bicondover herself. I guess you wouldn't say that's confirmed, but you know what I'm saying. Bane? What? The thing is, if Gotham went past season 5 with the storyline that they're doing currently, actually making Bruce the Batman by the end of this season, in a Batman Zero Year kind of way, is going to be not fully Arkham Knight plated Batman kind of style. And knowing we're getting the Batman Zero Year format, and as I just said, the Batman himself by the end of the season, then maybe by season 7 you could argue that they could push forward a little bit, and Bane would have heard of Batman in prison because he would have been out in the city for a couple of years. But this is not going to happen, and as a result, this is why I know why Bane wouldn't work in the Gotham TV show.
Then why do you want to kill me? I don't want to kill you. What would I do without you? Go back to ripping off mob dealers? No. No, you complete me.
But guys, do you agree with what I've said about Bane being a villain that could be introduced maybe if the show went on for a few more years and Bruce was actually quite well established as the Batman in Gotham City? So as I said, in prison he would have heard of him, and that would have motivated him to come to Gotham and escape the prison more than ever. But most importantly, do you agree that as we're not getting that and this ending in season 5, it would just not make sense to introduce Bane into the show? But by all means, if you think of an awesome writable way that this character could be implemented whilst maintaining the integrity of his origin, because it's just so firm, whereas, you know, the Penguin could rise to power as he has done in the show. The Riddler has risen as that character before Bruce's Batman. The Scarecrow, I feel like those stories have, and those characters are malleable in a way that the show, it has done a cool attempt in terms of the villains are creating Bruce and Batman, not Batman bringing out the villains. But in this case, that would have to happen with Bane. Bane would be coming to Batman in this universe still to fight the Batman and challenge and beat him. Anyway guys, if you liked this video, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that like button, and also if you're new to this channel, why not subscribe and turn notifications on, and if you don't already have notifications turned on, be sure to tick that bell button. I of course want to say thank you so much to my patrons, and if you're curious as to what Patreon is, the link is in the top of my description. It is a place where you can really help support the channel and fuel the content that I create, so thank you so much for checking it out. I do have social media, the links are in the description. I recommend my Twitter and my Instagram. Be sure to leave your video suggestions either in this comment section or in the community tab of my YouTube channel. But apart from that guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.